So is anyone else having a hard time marking 2017 down on your sheets and your checks and dates? It's hard to believe that we're in a whole nother year, 2017. As a church, we've kicked off a new sermon series specifically regarding 2017 with the question, what's next for us as a church? Last week we talked about what's next for us as we're knowing God, and today we're going to be talking about growing together. As our mission statement being, we want to know God, we want to grow together, and we want to show Christ. And so those three things. Next week we're going to hear from Noah talking about showing Christ. But this morning we're looking at growing together. When you see a team in action, there's something really special about that. When people know their roles, when everyone is following their assignments, and there's a real unity about that team. And this afternoon at about 4:30, we're going to be having we're going to be seeing the Cowboys and the Packers getting together, and they're going to be hopefully the Cowboys are going to come together as a team and play really well together. So hopefully that'll be there for us. But for a church, what does that mean? It's one thing, you know when a football team's coming together, you know that they're going to be scoring a lot of points and holding the other team to few points. But as a church, what does it mean for us when we come together? So we're going to be examining three value statements this morning. So what does growing together mean? Why is it important? How do we do it? So three values that'll explain this. I want to start off by talking about, we're going to be looking at 1 Corinthians 12. And so I want to give a brief background on 1 Corinthians 12. It was written by the Apostle Paul. The date is probably about 56 AD. That's a couple decades after Christ was crucified and rose again. The purpose was to correct a diverse, diseased, and divided church at Corinth. This church was about 4 years old. It was a very important, strategically church. And it was kind of at a crossroads. We had a lot of the East and a lot of the West would meet. And so it was a port city, very important. Paul spent 1.5 years of his life there at least, so it's one that Paul invested into personally. But it had a lot of problems. It had diversity, but along with the diversity, you've got a lot of different opinions and different mindsets, and there's a lot of division in the church. It was diseased in that the church was having a hard time making Christ the priority. There's so many other cultures around, and so it was very easy for them to try to follow other false gods or follow the culture, and they became divided. And so Paul wrote two corrective letters, but this is the first corrective letter that he wrote to help him. As far as the specific context, 1 Corinthians 12, 1 through 11 talks about the spiritual giftings that every believer has. And then 1 Corinthians 13 is one of the most famous passages in all of Scripture, being the one of love. But in between the section on spiritual gifts and the section on love is where we're going to be looking this morning, as far as what does it mean to be a church. And so the first value I want to look at is we need to value the church. The first value is the church itself. Value the church, value the body. I get that from 1 Corinthians 12, verses 12 to 13, which says this: just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all of his many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit as to form one body, whether Jew or Gentiles, slave or free. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. So last week we talked about a particular analogy, and can anyone remember the analogy we talked about last week as far as what it meant to be knowing God? It was this. This is what we are. This is what you are. This is what I am. We are sheep, and we're in need of the Good Shepherd. And knowing God looks a lot like us as sheep submitting to the Good Shepherd because we need Him. If you want a good picture of the church, you go from this to this. So there's a bunch of us together, we're a bunch of sheep together. But an even better picture of the church, and one we're going to be looking at this morning, is that of the human body. As 1 Corinthians 12:12 says, just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its parts form one body, so it is with Christ. And so this is the analogy we're going to look at this morning. Is that we are many parts created by God, but we're still one. We're one body. Take a moment to consider the wonders of the human body. There are 11 major systems in the human body: circulatory, digestive, endocrine, immune, integumentary, lymphatic, musculoskeletal, nervous, reproductive, respiratory, and urinary. So even just you look at the general categories of the different functions of the different cells in our body, they kind of fall into one of these 11 parts. There's a lot going on. And so you think about the complexity of how everything works together for the survival of the body. Let's go further. An adult human is made up of roughly about 7 octillion atoms. That's a massive number. And when you line up the number of zeros behind it, it pretty much stretches throughout the whole slide of the screen. The human body is estimated to have at least 60,000 miles of blood vessels, which is like 3 times around the world. More interesting facts about the human body. If a human's DNA were uncoiled, it would stretch 10 billion miles, which is from Earth to Pluto and back. So just if a human being's DNA uncoiled, 10 billion miles. We just can't fathom that kind of complexity. The brain contains 86 billion nerve cells joined by 100 trillion connections. This is more than the number of stars in the Milky Way, just to kind of give you perspective. Further, there are 3.2 million bacteria per inch of skin. It's not all bad, most of it's helpful. There are more bacteria in a human mouth than there are people in the world. Yeah. Adults produce 300 billion cells per day. So every day, technically, is a very productive day for you and I, because we produce 300 billion cells. So if a husband or wife comes home after a long day at work, well, what have you done all day? Well, I produced 300 billion cells. Not a bad answer. And another interesting fact is that after you're born, your eyes are fully developed and fully grown. But as you can tell from some people in here, ears and noses never stop growing. So that's something for us all to look forward to. So it's important to stop and take a moment just to think about, and this is just barely scratching the surface of what an amazing wonder our body is. And we still don't know the basic building block of the body, what it's made of. It's a miraculous thing working together, and only God could design or sustain a body. But there's a war going on inside of each one of you and I as these bacteria fight over our territory, and it's just incredible, the miracle of the human body. And it's something that we can't replicate. We can't breathe life. So God's created the human body itself is a wonderful, beautiful thing created by God. Let's consider the wonders of the Christian church. Right now, there are 2.4 billion people in the world today who claim Christianity. So it's like you take the complexity of the human body and you exponentially multiply that, the complexity of the church. Because all these cells and all these blood vessels and all these people are all working together, part of one broader living organism. There's approximately 35,000 denominations who claim the name of Christ. The Christian church has lasted 6,000 plus years of diversity, defining the Christian church as those who placed faith in the coming or the present Messiah, Jesus Christ, for salvation. And that's something that all the Jews look forward to, the coming Messiah. And then when Jesus is being revealed, we know that we worship Jesus. So it's one continuous religion, one continuous from all the way from Adam through to us. It's all one thing. So it's 6,000 plus years of adversity God's people, God's church has gone through. And that word adversity just is such an understatement. People have been killed for holding Bibles, for having beliefs. The amount of sacrifice, the amount of people that have martyred because of what they believe in. The Christian church is incredible. There's nothing like it that's lasted so long. And yet, here we are, and we're bigger than ever before. More Christians alive than ever. And so, in spite of all the adversity and all of the things, even the decline of the church in America, we're still doing really well. Different cultures, races, languages, locations, all united with one common purpose. The church is pretty amazing. It's also important to remember that church is designed by God. It said in 1 Corinthians 12 that we're designed, we're put in place by God, designed by God. We're owned by God. We are God's church. We're God's body. We're sustained by God. It's not by a bunch of really strong, powerful people that we're able to endure the adversity across 6,000 years. We've been sustained by God for that long. That's God's Spirit, which has enabled people to withstand persecution, to withstand withstand all the adversity that they encounter. We're sustained by God. He continues to watch over His people. And we're paid for by God. That Jesus' blood was shed for us. And so the church is God's organization. We belong to God. And it's really important to understand the ownership, the design, the ownership, the provision, that this is all God's. I want to ask a couple reflection questions. What is your perception of the church? And today it's been very, very popular to slam the church. The church is full of hypocrites. The church is full of flawed people and failures. These are things you hear a whole lot. The church takes tax dollars and needlessly wastes them, and all these things the church doesn't do. We hear this often. It's popular to slam the church, or to slam denominations within the church. It's very important that we, as part of the church, do not slam the church. I'm talking Big C church. Think about it. If we're the bride of Christ, how does a husband take it if you make fun of his wife, or if you ridicule her? Not very well. And so, even with all the flaws and failures, all the hypocrites, all the sin that's in the church today, it's very important that we speak highly of the church, that we view it rightly. That the church in America may be in a state of decline, the church in America may be struggling, but you think about all the Christians in Syria right now who are dying because they proclaim the name of Christ. Now, the church is alive and well. The church is owned by God and sustained by God. And so it's important that we have a positive perception of the church because God is in control of it. What's your perception of our church? Is another question. What's your perception of our church? Our church, just like the Big C church, is full of flaws. Certainly a flawed pastor, I can promise you. But it's important that we look at this church as God's organization, and we trust God with its future. And because God owns it, we can be optimistic. Because God's leading us, we can be optimistic about it, that we are a special group called by God together because of His love and His blood. And so the church is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And too often we forget how beautiful the church is. And so it's important that we value the church. This sermon series is called Next. And so if we value the church, if we value the body, what do? Well, we can attend, right? This isn't necessarily something new, because we're going to have church every day, every Sunday this next year. But one way we can value the church is by showing up. And not everyone goes here. We do have some from out of state. Go somewhere. Stay plugged into your local body. It's really, really important to be plugged in. Another thing, in this day and age, it's easy to call yourself a Lone Ranger Christian, to stay at home, to watch services online, but it's so important to be plugged into a body that loves you and cares about you. We should value the church by showing up. So that's the first value, is valuing the body. The second value I want to talk about is value the design. It's found in verses 15 through 24, and this is a lengthy section, so brace yourself. I'm about to read it all. In 1 Corinthians 12:15 says this: "Now if the foot should say, 'Because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. And if the ear should say, 'Because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body,' it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be?" And so Paul starts off with almost kind of stating the obvious, and there's a lot of sarcasm, there's a lot of just comedy in here. Can you imagine a body that's just all eyes? Just crazy to think about that. And he's saying that as ridiculous as it is to think of a body that's entirely made up of eyes, it's ridiculous to think of a body that's all the same part. That we're all different, and it's very important. Even though we're different, we're all part of the body. He goes on to verse 18. God has placed the parts of the body, each one of them, just as He wanted them to be. If they are all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And the parts that we think are less honorable, we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. And so it's important that we value design. There's parts of the body we can't do without. The body must have a posterior. And without a posterior, we'd be in big trouble, right? Bring stability and we can sit. But every part of our body, whether it be less honorable or more honorable, is extremely important to the whole. There's two things as far as when it comes to value design that it's important to think about. First is that we value our gifts appropriately. It's easy for us to overvalue ourselves, or to feel like, because a lot of us feel really strongly about what we bring to the table to the church. We offer a really good service to the church, and that's an important thing. But we can overvalue our gifts. We can have a disproportionate valuing of gifts. If I overvalue what I do up here, that's going to lead to arrogance, and it's not going to be good leadership. Likewise, we could also undervalue ourselves. We don't think highly of ourselves enough. And that may seem like a good thing to do, may seem like a spiritual, like a humble thing, but it's actually a really bad thing because God designed you that way. That God gave you unique gifts that are unique to you, that no one else in this church has the exact same set of gifts that you do. We can undervalue ourselves. We can also overvalue others. We can look at others and say, I wish I had that gift. It was recently that I saw a megachurch, the worship leader for a megachurch walk by. And as I saw him walk by, and I thought, here is a man who leads thousands of people in worship every weekend. Several services. He stands up in front of that crowd and he plays the guitar and he leads the choir, he leads the service. And just think about the beauty of when all those voices unite in worship. And I looked and I saw him walk by and his hair's in place, he's got the good family. He can fit into skinny jeans, which he was rocking well. And my thought was he's better than me. That was my literal words that came to my mind, is that man is better than me. That's me undervaluing myself and overvaluing somebody else. That, maybe sometimes preachers wish they could sing well. And singers sometimes wish they could preach well. And then all of us wish we could give better, that we'd have more money. And it's easy for us to overvalue others or undervalue our own selves. So we must value who God has created us to be and value who God created other people to be. And it's a thing of great beauty that God designed us this way. So what do you think about your spiritual gifts? Do you know them? Do you know what your spiritual gifts are? I would love to, if you want to know them, just go earlier in 1 Corinthians 12, 1 through 11, and you'll get a good sampling of what the gifts are. If you would like a test or would like to know more about your spiritual gifts, I'll post some stuff on Facebook, so if you're following us, you can take some spiritual gift tests right there. But do you know them? And once you know them, what do you think about them? Because no matter what they are, we need you here. It's really important that God designed you just the way you are, and you integrally fit inside this body. And it's all important that we work together. Not overvaluing ourselves, not undervaluing ourselves, not overvaluing other people or undervaluing other people. It's one of my things that I love to do that makes me smile is to look at undervalued people. And I love the people that serve behind the scenes here at this church, or any church. I love to single out and to look for things. Who's cleaning the pews? Who's doing the little things? Things like a lot of our worship team does, is they take care of all the little things in the background of serving, filling the communion things. I love these people that do things behind the scenes, and it's important that we find them and recognize them. And that you keep doing what you're doing, because we can't survive without you. It's easy to be recognized for good or for bad if you're the one up here. Either as a target for unjust praise or unjust criticism. But I'm just part of the body wanting to do what God's gifted me to do. What do you think about your spiritual gifts? What do you think about using your spiritual gifts? Two good questions. We value the design by serving. So we value the body by attending. We value the design by serving, by plugging in, by recognizing God's gifted us and we should serve. Each of us has a divine calling that we need to be who God has called us to be and get plugged in and serve. That the Big C Church needs you. We, Mesquite Church, we need you. We need your help. We all work together. So the last value, we've looked at valuing the body, we've looked at valuing the design. I want to talk about valuing the members. 1 Corinthians 12:24 says this, "But God put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other." If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part in it. Did you catch that? If one part suffers, every part suffers. So I think a good example of this, almost pick an ailment that you have. Have you ever had a toothache? Anyone here ever had a toothache? Cavity, maybe? Yes. Yes. When you have that cavity, what does it do to the rest of your body? Doesn't it, like you get the throbbing pain that starts over back here in the molar, and then if you don't go to the doctor in time, maybe you're a man, you want to tough it out, right? And you don't go to the doctor, and if you wait on that one, you don't go to the doctor, that pain starts to spread up into your upper jaw. It's not long until it just is in your mind and all over your body, and all you can think about is that pain of that molar that's hurting your tooth. And you can expand that to just about any ailment that we have, whether it be allergies, a cold, or sickness, or you stubbed your toe. In all the ways, just as a physical body, when there's one part of us that hurts, it's hard to even think straight. And it's the same. It should be the same with us as a body. We should hurt together. We should have empathy together. It hurt me so much to hear this morning about Becky. And if you feel that way about her, that's a good thing. And that should drive us, that concern, that hurt for her should drive us to call her, to pray for her, to function as the body should. You think about bodies that don't feel pain, they don't know when they're hurt. That's a really severe sickness. When you can't feel pain, you don't know what's wrong and you can't do anything about it. But if we as a church will feel pain with each other, empathize with each other, listen to each other, then we can take action and help each other and serve each other. And there's a lot of us hurting here, so we should be crying a lot probably on each other's shoulders, and we should be the shoulders that other people can cry on. The converse is also true. It feels so good when a part gets well. So to see Chelsea here being healed, to see Nan, to see Mary, to see our women back safe and sound, there's a part that just rejoices knowing that they're back, they're safe, they're healed, and it feels so good. Let's rejoice together. And we should share each other's burdens and rejoice with each other in the victories that we experience. And life's so much better that way. We celebrate. It's half the pain and an exponentially multiplied of the celebration. So how much do you care about the people around you? Are we willing to do this with each other? Where we really care and love one another. We're willing to check up on each other. And if someone's not here, let's follow up with them and find out why they're not here. Even if they're not here, you just think about a person, call, check up on them, see how they're doing. And so we should, if we're a healthy body, we're going to really hurt with each other, and we're going to really rejoice with each other. So how much do you care about the people that are sitting around you? How much do you feel that the people sitting around you care about you? Do you feel loved? It'd be great in 2017 if we were a church where the answer to both these questions was, I care about each other a whole lot, and I know that they care about me a whole lot. And I think this is one of the strengths of the church. I really do. And there's always room to improve, but this is one area that we're great at, and we can get even better. And so we can value the members by loving one another. So we value the body, we value the design, we value the members by loving. Another thing that we can do is we can listen to each other. I think this is one of the best demonstrations of love, is just to listen to each other. To stop and to really care about what everyone else is thinking and saying. One of the hard trademarks of our culture is we live in kind of a one-directional communication. We post stuff on Facebook, post stuff on Twitter, Instagram. It's like we send information out, but maybe we're not as good at receiving. And so it's important to stop and really ask, how are you doing? Now, I struggle with this a lot. I struggle with listening. I feel sorry for Mark Sopchis, because he recently started working with me over at Irving Bible at a security position, right, an after-hours position. And currently he's in the middle of being trained by me. And so last week, from 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock, he got to hear me ramble nonstop. So just going and going and going and going and going. And there's a point in time where I'm like, my mouth is just going. I should probably stop and ask him how he's doing. Is he digesting all the things I'm trying to train him with? How's his life? How's he feeling? And so it's hard for me. I get it. And maybe some of you people in here, the introverts, you're like, maybe sometime you should stop talking. But it's important to listen to each other, to really listen to what's on each other's hearts. Call each other up. Be around. So I think listening is really important. It's one way we can serve one another. So the hope is that all of us would make a commitment to attend, serve, and love each other more in 2017. That we as a church body are uniquely gifted. This church, this is holy. This church, Mesquite Church, designed by God. There's something precious about it. Now, every church that desires to honor Jesus can say that. But we're no different than them in this, that God has designed us, put us together as a body. He's put all the pieces together. The staff, the congregation, the visitors, everyone. He's put us together. Let's make a commitment to attend, serve, and love each other more in 2017. It's also important to stop and consider, what would the church look like if we made this commitment? Wouldn't that be great? We did a pretty good job last year in 2016, but what if we got even better in 2017? If we made a commitment to attend every week as much as possible, rain or snow or shine, that we are going to a body that needs us. We're a very important part of the body. This applies to Wednesday morning Bible study, applies to Sunday morning Bible study, applies to Sunday morning worship. And understand some people can't make some of those services, and that's okay, but be plugged in at one of those areas. Because we miss you, we love you. It's important for us that you're here. Let's make a commitment to attend. Now, how about serving? This actually has one of the highest serving percentages of any church I've ever seen. Now, we're small, but we interact. We work as a church that's at least twice our size. And it's great. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's the reason why the church has done well. It's the reason why the church has survived lean years, is because there is such a commitment to service in this church. But there are some people who are hanging along the sidelines. It's a great time to get in the game. And also, if you're serving, don't quit. Don't give up. Know that what you're doing is very valuable. Maybe you're one of those people that serves behind the scenes. Keep doing what you're doing. You're a very important part of what happens here. So let's make a commitment. Let's renew that commitment to serve. And lastly, let's continue to love each other more in 2017. Our fellowship team is one of the strongest teams that we have. And we're going to be doing a lot of things this year, things that we haven't done for a while, like the bake sale. We haven't done that in a long time. Well, let's show up to these things. Let's show up to the fellowship events. Let's get together. Let's come together. This woman's retreat, such a beautiful thing. What a great example of what it means to grow together. Let's make a commitment to continue building into each other and building those relationships. Because when that happens, and any of the women will tell you, something miraculous happens, something special happens when we're together and we invest into each other. So make a commitment to attend, to serve, and love each other more in 2017. And so that hopefully is what's next for our church. And the future, I believe, is very bright. So I want to continue our time in worship by singing a song that is about fellowship and that is about us being together. And so I'd like to invite my wife to come up and lead us in this final song.
How amazing the body is with all its different functions that work together, all its different systems. But what makes it so beautiful is that all those systems come together for the benefit of the one, the body. I think of a time in the Bible where everyone came together. I think of the Tower of Babel. And all these people came together and God looked at them and said, nothing that they desire to do will be impossible for them. How much more will it be for the church when it's unified, not for itself, but for God? Pray with me, please. God, I just thank you for who you are, that you've planned out this beautiful thing you call the church, Lord, where you've given each of us unique gifts that we use to strengthen one another so as we may proclaim your name and the kingdom may be strengthened. God, what a beautiful design only you could fathom. Lord, I just pray that you join our church together. Lord, give us strength, give us a heart for you and a heart for each other that we may be unified. I ask all this in your name. Amen.